BookTube Prize land. It feels like forever since I was not a judge in the first round since I've made a BookTube Prize video. So today is April 3rd and the BookTube Prize results were announced on Tuesday or Wednesday. And I am judging Fiction Group A, which was the one fiction group that I didn't want to get. And the reason I didn't want to get it is because it has The Mirror and the Light by Hilary Mantel in it, and I had not read Bringing Up the Bodies by Hilary Mantel. Bring Up the Bodies. So it is, the first month. So we have 2 months to read 6 books. So I am now going to be reading Bring Up the Bodies in April because I don't want to read The Mirror and the Light by itself as a standalone. I just feel, because I've started the series and I read Wolf Hall last year. Was it last year or was it 2 years ago? I don't even know. But I read Wolf Hall and I just felt like I didn't want to not read the second book because I'd always planned on reading it. So I got it out. It's actually, I thought it was going to be much longer than it is, but it's only 410 pages. So this month is going to be Bring Up the Bodies, and then next month I will read The Mirror and the Light. So the other books that I am reading this month for BookTube Prize are Homeland, Elegies, a novel by Akhtar. It was one of the, I really chose them based on availability at the library. So I grabbed this one and I'm looking forward to reading this. It was not one that I voted for, but I love books about identity and belonging. That's actually something that I'm reading about right now anyway. So I think that this will go along well with that and hopefully have some interesting thoughts and ideas that I can include in my art research that I'm doing. And I'm listening on audio to The Death of Vivek by Adwaeke Emezi. And I will also be reading Pew by Catherine, I don't remember her last name right now. And I think that book I'm going to get an e-copy of on my iPad. So I'm going to start with Homeland, Elegies, and The Death of Vivek, which I've already started. And then I will read Pew later on in the month once I have finished Homeland Elegies. So that is my plan. I am reading other books for this month, but this is a specific vlog for BookTube Prize, so I'll only be talking to you about BookTube Prize books. I will try to keep this to, it might be 2 vlogs, it might be 1. Usually I do 3 books per vlog. But they tend to get long. So we'll see how much footage I get, and I will take you along with me and give you impressions when I'm about halfway through The Death of Vivek and Homeland Elegies. So, and Pew. I check in when I'm halfway and at the end of each book. So thanks so much for following along, and welcome to another BookTube Prize vlog. Hi everybody. I just reached halfway in The Death of Vivek. So I'm going to try to articulate my thoughts about this novel, but it's a hard one to talk about. This is my first Adwaeke Emezi novel. They are a spectacular writer. Spectacular. At the beginning, or still, this book reminds me quite a bit of Tin Man by Sarah Winman. The subject matter is only loosely similar, but the love of the family and how that love is disseminated through the characters reminds me a lot of Tin Man. And also there's several themes that cross over into both the books. One obviously set in England, one set in Nigeria. So completely different cultures, but just this similar tone and the similar themes of unrequited love and being like a cultural belief being held in the body. This book wrapped me up from the very beginning. Emezi's way of writing is so engrossing and so lyrical and so descriptive in terms of character. The book is told through multiple narrators from multiple perspectives and multiple timelines, but I don't find it confusing. The order is like, it just makes sense. The flow is perfect. And you know from the beginning, obviously, it's called The Death of Vivek, that Vivek is dead. And you probably know why or how to a certain degree as well. But the execution of how this story is being told is darn near perfect to me. So, you have two families. You have brothers and their wives, and then their two sons. They each have one son, and the sons, Osita and Vivek, grow up like brothers in a kind of brotherly relationship. And you have a whole cast of characters that lives in each of their villages, and you have a whole cast, some different cultural influences as well, because Vivek's mother is of Indian descent, I believe. And so there's kind of a cross-cultural interplay there as well, because there's a whole group of wives who are friends who marry Nigerian men but who are not Nigerian born. And you're also getting a kind of backdrop of the political situation in Nigeria, but it's more about how that political situation is affecting the atmosphere around these families. So it's really not about Nigeria beyond how Nigeria plays out in these families' lives. And it's wow, it's so good. So that's the way I feel at halfway. I have no problem in saying that this could very easily be my number one at this stage. Obviously, I'm only halfway through two of the books, but both of them are very good. But this one is just so, I can tell that Adwaeke Emezi's writing is just the type of writing that gets me, and I need that emotional character connection, and I am connected to all of them, and I have a huge sense of foreboding at what I think has been implied, and I'm not going to spoil anything, because I feel like this is one of those books that it's bad, like, it's not really a good thing to know all the little plot details. You don't want to know too much about it. So I am hoping that my feeling of foreboding is wrong, because it will be devastating if it is correct. But yeah, really enjoying my reading so far. Okay. Hey everyone, I wanted to wrap up The Death of Vivek. I really enjoyed it. The thing that was worrying me about the ending, where I had this foreboding feeling that certain thing was going to happen, was not what happened, so that made me happy. I think that a lot of people I saw reviewing it were talking about how it was about secrets, and it's definitely about secrets and about the consequences of secrets, but it's also about being true to who you are and understanding the risks in that, in a culture that is still very closed to expressions of gender that are not stereotypical. And, you know, I feel that Adwaeke Emezi has a beautiful way of communicating that through this book, and the ability of a heart to change sometimes when it's too late, but still have that love and remorse, and how those things all intertwine. There's a lot of the sentiments and emotions that the characters feel, they play out through their bodies in the book, mostly the younger ones. And so I found that very interesting. And I thought that the book was just brilliantly focused. Always, even though there was a large, fairly large cast of characters, everything always circled back to Vivek and to Vivek's as the center from which everything else branches off. So it was an excellent read. I really enjoyed it, and at this point, it's the one to be. Hi everyone. I'm checking in. I am halfway through Homeland, Elegies, a novel by Akhtar, and this is a really unique read. I am really enjoying it. So it is not, I understand why they put a novel on the cover, because if you were picking it up, you would think it was a memoir or a narrative essay. It's a first-person narrative, and the main character is also named Ayad. And it is based on parts of Ayad Akhtar's life. So, obviously, I don't know what is fact, what is fiction in this story. And he's writing from a Pakistani American perspective. He is American. He was born in the United States. He grew up in the United States, but being raised by immigrants to a new country, you obviously have your culture that is handed down to you. And throughout this whole book, Ayad is struggling with his identity and how he fits into the United States or doesn't. There's a lot of the subtleties and microaggressions that Muslim Americans face from the white culture, from systemic racism, but so much more. I mean, there's so many digressions in the story, so many weird connections, such as how Ayad becomes a millionaire, his father being a doctor for Donald Trump, his uncle working with the regime of Osama bin Laden in an indirect way. Just so many different things. Some of the digressions are I don't find as interesting as others. So for instance, he talks a lot about how a lot of his family members are named after different aspects of Islam, names, similar to how, someone who's Christian families would be naming their children biblical names. He goes into kind of the names that come down through Islam, which was fine. I mean, I found learning about his family interesting, but I don't necessarily find learning about Islam as interesting. But that's just, like religion is not particularly an area that I am fascinated by. So it was fine, but it's just not something I'm as interested in. I found his personal relationships with his family to be really interesting, and his impressions of different parts of American culture and his storytelling are very, very strong. The writing is very good, very sophisticated, and it requires, I wouldn't say it's hard to read, it reads quite well, but it does require you to be present. You can't really drift anywhere in the story. And I'll also say that this is not plot. There's not really plot here. It's very episodic in how it's being told. So very good start, I would say, for this for me. I think having only read Mohsin Hamid's work as a Pakistani author, obviously Ayad Akhtar is of Pakistani descent, but he is a U.S. author. But he's very much rooted in his culture and in his identity as experienced through being an other in the United States. So I think the perspective of Pakistan and the culture are fascinating to read about, and really give you just a unique way of looking at the world that I think always right now is needed when living in a place where white supremacy is kind of the norm for the culture that is presented. So that's my thoughts so far. Hi everybody, good morning. I finished Homeland, Elegies by Ayad Akhtar, and I enjoyed it. It's a really interesting novel. I think I mentioned in my halfway commentary that there are some digressions that just didn't hold my attention as well as others, and that was still the case in the last half of the book. It's just, I don't think there's nothing wrong with the book at all. That's just for my personal interest that wasn't held the entire time. But I think that this novel does some really important work with talking about the American experience, the experience of living in the United States and growing up as an other, so as not a part of the white majority. And I think he communicates that really effectively, and he offers the perspective of himself, his father are kind of the main perspectives you get, and then a few characters that are around the outside, including his mother and other family members. So it's also the story, I would say, of an artist, of a writer, and of how he translated his experiences into his art, which I think was fascinating. And I think the conclusion of the book was very well done, was very poignant, and it really, rounded out everything really nicely. That, despite the fact that you're growing up in a country that does not fully accept you for who you are based on no fault of your own, that's still your home, and that you work through these things as a member of society, and you challenge those those preconceived notions that are against you, because you are dedicated to the place that you were born and grew up in. And I think that he shows his strength as a citizen through his work. And yeah, so I really enjoyed this. I think it's a really great read. I am curious to see how the other books stack up against it and where it will fall in the rankings later on. So I will check in again when I am halfway through Pew by Catherine Lacey. Good morning, everyone. I am halfway through Pew by Catherine Lacey. And yeah, my impressions so far are good. I am enjoying it. I really liked the beginning of the book. I thought it established Pew's voice in a really succinct and strong way. I like the fact that Pew as a character moves through the book as an observer, and has a removed way of looking at the world, which is not only just genderless, but devoid of any human attachment to anything. So really they are a character that like kind of observes and exists, but doesn't make any real traits or characteristics realized within themselves, which is interesting. I'm finding that I'm drifting a little bit right now, because there's this, it's laid out by the days of the week, and you do get some backstory from Pew about their travels through different parts of the United States, and then you encounter the family that takes Pew in this very patronizing way, which they believe is, they have a mandate, a message to protect Pew, to help Pew. So what's happening to me now, though, is that I'm losing. There's been a lot of characters introduced, a lot of different people in the community, trying to pull Pew out, trying to make Pew speak, trying to make Pew reveal who they are. And so I feel like something else needs to happen, because this is kind of, that's what's been happening, and Pew is not revealing anything. So it feels very repetitive, because there's not anything developing from that method. And then there's this looming festival that's going to be happening on Saturday. So I think at this point in the book I'm on Thursday. And Saturday is when this looming festival is going to happen, and it's very mysteriously talked about, and all these hints are dropped, and it sounds like something menacing. It sounds very horror film-esque, some sort of a rite or ritual that seems like it is going to be threatening to Pew, but that it has threatened others as well. So that is kind of looming in the background, and I am intrigued as to what this festival is. And that is what I think about it so far. So it's quite succinctly written. Like I said, Catherine Lacey's style is very pared down, and the formatting, I'm reading this on ebook on my iPad, and the formatting is kind of strange. So the font is very large, and I find that odd, but I can't really change it. I've put it on the smallest font available through the formatting. And the way she's laid out the text, it's kind of like italics means dialogue, and non-italics is the internal observations of Pew from the first person. So yeah, that's what I've got to say so far. I will check in again when I am finished Pew. Good morning, everyone. I wanted to share my final thoughts with you about Pew by Catherine Lacey. So, I really enjoyed it at the beginning, and I think I said that. I thought it started really strong. And what ended up happening for me with this novel was that I didn't feel like it had a message that I resonated with, or that it held together. I feel like by the middle there was just this repetitive plot line where Pew was kind of parceled off to these different people who would then tell Pew their story. And then the ending was not climactic to me. And when this mysterious festival is revealed for what it is, and Pew is, I guess, revealed for what they are, I believe that all the questions, all the ideas that were brought up about gender were kind of left in and absorbed into this kind of supernatural or questionable, what is Pew? Was Pew a person? Type of question. And that just didn't work for me. I didn't really understand the ending, and then I kind of had to read a few reviews and see how other people interpreted it to understand what it meant. It actually Pew reminded me a lot of Lanny by Max Porter, which I read last year for the BookTube prize, in that it has this similar way of looking at a small community, looking at the dark side of a community. The festival itself, when it was revealed what it was, which is basically a confession place, and I hope, I'm sorry if this is a spoiler. I guess it could be considered a spoiler. So if you don't want to know what the festival is, then fast forward for the next 30 seconds. But basically it's a place where people go and say terrible things in an anonymous fashion, and then they are absolved of their guilt or responsibility around them. And it was very similar to Lanny in that it's listing, you hear these people say these terrible things, and there's about 3 or 4 pages of this. And I don't like that reading style. I feel like there's like a level of shock value that's supposed to be in it. There is a level of trying to make it seem like we're all the same and we all have faults and we all think terrible things, which I think for me is not a new concept. I kind of already feel that way about humanity. So it just didn't resonate with me. The other problem I have with it is that I didn't care about the characters and I didn't feel connected to them. I felt connected to Pew in the idea that I felt that the way Pew was being treated was unjust, and that other people were controlling them and not giving them agency. But they didn't take agency. They could have walked away at any point. They didn't. And that was all supposed to be because they weren't really a real person, I guess. And again, it didn't stick with me despite a really strong beginning. And I feel like if it would have stayed in that kind of observational, personal dialogue that Pew was having as a narrative, I would have really connected with it much more. Because it moved out into the community controlling the narrative, I just didn't enjoy their perspectives as much. And, you know, I could compare it kind of to Olive Again, which I read also last year. It's that similar style of going through a town and letting everyone talk about their faults and their secrets, and you're like inside the confession. And that style just does not work very well for me. So 3 books read. I have begun Deacon King Kong on audio and Interior Chinatown on ebook. And I will be picking up The Mirror and the Light later today at the library. So I'm going to end this vlog here, and I will start up again on the next 3. And thank you so much for watching. And if you're interested in hearing my final rankings, I will be making a final ranking video for round 2 as well. And you can look forward for that later on. Talk to you soon.